The Mike Gallagher Show.
When a silent majority allows their nation to lose its common sense...
Time check, 6:53, 54, 55, 56. We still okay?
Crazy?
Yeah, we're good.
Mike Gallagher gets you thinking.
There's a fine line between needy and greedy. A real fine line.
So, speak your mind. And now, sitting in for Mike today, here's Mike Scinto.
Go. Thank you, Peter Reef. And it is, in fact, always a pleasure to sit in for Mike. This is a busy week and a busy show. So you want to stay with us. Stay with us as long as you possibly can. Portions of the Mike Gallagher Show are sponsored by Geico. It's easy to save 15% or more on car insurance with Geico. Just go to geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. The only hard part? Figuring out which way is easier. Well, developments in the Zimmerman case. We've talked about it from many different angles. By the way, the way to participate in the show, and it's great to listen, but it's also fun if you can participate too at 1-800-655-MIKE, 1-800-655-6453, and you can also reach me anytime at soundoff2mike@gmail.com or Mike Scinto Show on Facebook. We have talked off and on. Mike, of course, has talked about it much, and I've talked about it this week during the wrapping up of the trial of George Zimmerman, the murder trial of George Zimmerman, about whether or not he should have even stood trial if he is in fact guilty of the crime of murder. Well, not just if he's guilty of it, but if that's something that can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he's guilty of murder. And at least in my eyes, as I've said over and over again, there's no way when there are only two witnesses and one of them's dead and one of them is on trial to prove his intent, to prove what he did and why he did it. There's just no way to prove it. Well, listen to this. I mean, you talk about trying to grasp at straws and to get a victory any way you can. State prosecutors are asking the judge in the Trayvon Martin case to instruct the jury to consider lesser charges, manslaughter and aggravated assault, when they begin deliberations on Friday. Zimmerman's attorneys have objected, and Judge Deborah Nelson will hold a hearing this morning to decide whether jurors should consider the new charges. The jury would still have the option of convicting Zimmerman, 29, of the second-degree murder charge that prosecutors sought when the trial began. Now, this tells me if the prosecutors believed in their case. And look, if there are some attorneys out there, I'm not an attorney. I just play one on the radio. But if there are some attorneys out there, let me know if you agree with this, or those who follow the law in some capacity. But my interpretation of this is, they go into this thing thinking they've got a slam dunk. They bring up their expert witnesses and the character witnesses, and they realize that the slam dunk all of a sudden has turned into a possible narrow margin of victory, if a victory at all. In other words, they know they're in trouble. The prosecutors know they are in big trouble in this case. Why don't they just lower the possible charges to trespassing or stalking? Why keep it at manslaughter or assault? To me, this is if this judge goes along with this, and we should know a little bit later, if this judge goes along with this, she has shot down all her credibility on my part. They brought these charges. They were saying how heinous this was. They've painted this picture of this quote-unquote racist George Zimmerman seeking out, going after, following, and finally shooting Trayvon Martin. Which, if what they're saying was true, which I don't believe it is, and I certainly believe it couldn't be proven, if what they said was true, why would they settle for lesser charges? I mean, if the picture they painted was true, George Zimmerman's a murderer. Why settle for aggravated assault? Why settle for lesser charges? Look, I know this is done in court cases all the time. But this is a very high-profile case with some very explicit and the charges against him and the claims made against this man tell me that the prosecutors are scared to death. You tell me if you agree with that or disagree with that at 1-800-655-MIKE, 1-800-655-6453. Now, did the Department of Justice help generate, listen to this, help generate protests in Florida over the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case? Or did their community relations service attempt to moderate their tone? Judicial Watch discovered that the Community Relations Service spent some time and money participating in the protests in the spring of 2012. Thanks to a trove of documents from a wide-ranging FOIA request. So, I mean, here's a national organization. A national organization that is participating in setting up I mean, you want to talk about, is this a built case, a contrived case? Check it out. Listen to this, and we're gonna hear about this in just a second. Former Sanford, Florida Police Chief Bill Lee claimed on CNN that he was fired last year because he didn't want to arrest George Zimmerman. In fact, let's take a listen right now to what the chief said.
The city manager asked several times during the process, well, can an arrest be made now? And I think that was just from not understanding the process, the criminal justice process. I had one of the city commissioners come to me on 2 different occasions and say, all we want is an arrest. And I explained to them, well, you just can't do that. You have to have probable cause to arrest somebody. And it was related to me that they just wanted an arrest. They didn't care if it got dismissed later. And you don't do that.
Look, I've got to tell you, this is from the beginning, and you remember when all this came down, and George Zimmerman was out free, and there were questions about why he wasn't in jail, if in fact folks believed that he did something wrong, and as the pressure built, and it wasn't just from those in the justice system who were arguing, it was because of protests in the streets, because of people marching, because of people chanting, because of people going on places like MSNBC. Black leaders coming out, community leaders coming out and say, what are you going to do about this? Why is he out free? In fact, if I recall right, and maybe Lance, you remember this, didn't they even post his address, or didn't some of the black leaders post Zimmerman's address or picket his house or something? And that was way back, and I don't remember for sure, but for some reason, that's sticking in my mind that they were actually harassing Zimmerman's family because he hadn't been arrested yet. That's right. Spike Lee. That's what it was. Thanks, Lance. Spike Lee was going to tweet his address, but I don't think it happened for some reason. But it was, or it didn't take, or he changed his mind, or whatever. But see, the community. When I say the community, I'm talking about those people who are not really interested in justice. Wrong address, that's what it was. Thanks, Lance. It was the wrong address. And he gave up after that. The people who wanted him arrested, the people who wanted him charged, the people who wanted this trial are not interested in justice. They're interested because when they strike at the peak of interest, like at this trial right now, when racists strike, they don't care if this is if this was a legitimate self-defense on the part of Zimmerman or not. They want, as Michael Dyson said, and we heard that recently, that they want the guy who's killing their children. He's a symbol of those killing black children in America. Listen to this. Now we have PSAs running in Florida begging people not to riot. Listen to this.
Raise your voice
and not your hands.
We need to stand together as one. No cuffs, no guns.
Let's give violence a rest, because we can easily end up arrested.
I know your patience will be tested, but law enforcement has your back.
Let's back up and choose not to act up, and deputies are with us, so no need to act up.
Let it roll off your shoulders. It's water off your back. Don't lack composure, because in one instance it could be over.
So let's make the choice to raise your voice and not your hands.
I'm sure Scott Israel and law enforcement does have your back.
Now, is the ACLU going to insist, and will folks like Al Sharpton and Michael Dyson insist that, well, if you're going to do those PSAs, we need to do some PSAs on our side saying, don't take this laying down if there's an acquittal? BJU Press has the educational resources you need to start a spiritual revolution. Visit bjupresshomeschool.com or call 800-845-5731 today. Off to your calls on Zimmerman and the shenanigans going on in the trial and outside the courtroom up next.
They're starting back in China, so finish what you got.